These are affecting what we can do with our money in the city. We need to have the city allocate money properly and fiscally so that we get our tax dollars worth. Thank you.
I want to actually start by doing something we don't often do in politics and say John touched on some very, very good points there. And I want to start with, this was a portion of the Bloomberg school system, that we would create these smaller schools and somehow things would get better. But all we did was explode the bureaucracy that exists in these schools. That's where the money's going. It's not to keep per pupil class sizes low. That's a proven way that we can improve our educational foundation. We don't do it because all the money's going to the administrators, unfortunately. That's something we have to change. Now, in terms of what we can do to fix or work with PS 71, listen, I'm a product of a K-8 school. I went to PS 175. It was rated one of the best K-8 schools in the city when I was there. It wasn't my doing, it was the teachers and the parents and my mother staying on top of me. And that's why we moved to City Island, actually, was because it was such a great school. What we need to do in terms of PS 71 is we need to really push NYCHA, get their feet to the fire so they see the light, that we need them to give us that land behind Rain Middletown to make an extension of that annex. I worked very closely with Michelle to put out that petition. Over 100 of you signed it. Thank you. You can go to change.org and sign it if you'd like. And really push this case. Again, unfortunately, we didn't have a partner in the incumbent city councilman on this particular issue. I'm not going to sit here and bash him. He's not here to defend himself. But on this one issue, we have a little bit of a disagreement. Something else we've been doing with respect to PS 14 is, like many of you, I'm outraged that they cut down all the trees out there and that the community consultation became an afterthought. I think I almost, he was talking about, Mark was talking about veins bulging. I think my veins bulged when they came back at the community consultation period and said, we listened to you, we changed the color of the building. I mean, that was the fact that someone collects a salary for that is a crime. But what we have to do is get all those documents, find out who knew what, and again, this is another case of not just one politician, but the community board, unfortunately, was not, in the room, and we don't know when they found out about this building. And we need to work together to find out where we move forward from here. I want to work with you. I want to make sure there's a traffic plan in place for PS 14. That's most important. But again, back to PS 71, keeping the schools together makes so much sense. For the kids, there's not as much of a transition. We've seen that in junior highs like IS 92. It hasn't always worked. And for the parents, it's one stop if your kid's in 2nd grade and if it's in 7th grade. So I'll work with you to try to make that happen and keep that a great K-8 school. I know it already is. But we need more classrooms and more per pupil discussion. We need an increase in foundation aid from Albany, but again, we need somebody with a bullhorn and somebody who can be a pest at times, and I can be that pest. Thank you.
So I'm very excited to talk about education because that's actually part of my platform. And just like John Serini, I do have 4 children who have gone through this same issue as far as being able to attend a school that's not only fit, but that also provides the right type of environment for someone to learn. Thankfully, a part of the district has options, and unfortunately some others don't. My wife, who grew up in Throgs Neck, was a product of the broken down system that we have, not only in Throgs Neck or in District 13, but in New York City as a whole. And this problem doesn't just start in City Hall. It starts in Albany, and it needs to be resolved in Albany. And a lot of times it's the politics behind it that's causing the problems at the local level. So we need to undo what's happening up in Albany and in City Hall. We do need to expand the educational opportunities and for all of the children in District 13 as well as across New York City. We do have to have options. And I would love to see a bigger complex for PS 71, but I would also love to see other options throughout the district as a whole. So it's not just about building one more school, it's about building several more schools and doing as much as we can, or maximizing the efforts that we have across the whole district so that not one kid suffers, because it is a shame that kids have to get out of a trailer to go into a building to use a bathroom. Okay, and this epidemic is not something new. It's happened across the borough. I grew up in the South Bronx. Trailers have been around for decades. So if you're complaining about that now, that's been happening forever. And we need to hold our politicians in Albany, as well as in City Hall, accountable for what they haven't done for our children. And I believe that that's where education is the beginning and it is the end to unemployment, underemployment. But we also have to become creative about the type of education that we're giving our kids. So again, let's take the politics out of, and the money out of education, and let's put it back where it belongs with our children. We need books, and we need better schools, and we need better paid teachers. And so yes, I do believe we need to expand the buildings in this district as well as in New York City.
I'm a former New York City high school teacher. I taught honors. The problem in our high school system was that there were too many kids in the classroom. We had 35 at one time. And then the books, the books of the $50, $75 books didn't meet the state curriculum. So here I'm a teacher, I have to follow the state curriculum. Thematic essays, DBQs, teach them how to read and write. When I open up my textbook, the textbook doesn't match the state curriculum. So now I have to find third-party sources and spend my personal money as a teacher to find the stuff that I need to teach the kids based on the state curriculum. I have 30 pieces of legislation here from Marguerite. Not one passed the state legislature this year. He's been in power since January to now. I haven't seen not one of the 30 pieces of legislation have to deal with education. And education, to modify the state law and education comes from the state. We in the city have to abide what the state says. So when your children take the state exam, the reading regions, the math, the social studies, the Spanish, how can I get the tools to teach when my state assemblyman or my education department doesn't provide the tools? Columbus High School shut down. Morris High School, Stevenson High School. These were schools that had liberal arts, music. I was in a band, jazz band. I was a conductor in the jazz band. We had football programs, baseball programs. We had drama programs. We had theater programs. Go back now to your old school, see if those programs are there. They've been wiped out. So there's no recreational activities, no music, no drama, nothing. They're all gone. Go back to your school, find out what's going on. We have sold out the community lands. Look at Donald Trump. He got so much space there for free. Does he pay taxes? No. We pay taxes. Look at the old the Star, where now it's a Home Depot. They could have put a school there. Look at the Whitestone Theater, where my father and family used to go to the theater and watch a movie at night.
20 seconds.
Gone. Look at Co-op City. We overdeveloped. We didn't think about our children. The politicians and the community board sold out the environment. And now we have an epidemic and we got a crisis. And the crisis is real. 30 pieces of legislation, not one dealt with education. This is Marguerite. It's here for your review. Not one passed his committee, not one passed the state legislature. The governor have not passed not one legislative issue
2 minutes is
that
up.
he has proposed. And yet he wants to come down, which he just got elected in November, and now wants to be our city councilman. If you could pass the legislation and have the governor sign the
2
bill
minutes
to
is up,
become
sir.
law, then you deserve the city councilmanship. But if you have 30 pieces of legislation and not one has passed the state legislature, not one has passed signed by the governor, how can you be my city councilman? I'm sorry. We need to look at this. You guys need to look at the reality of the situation. Thank you.
What is your feeling about No Child Left Behind? Mr. Gomez, ask you first.
So, actually, it's a topic that I'm very familiar with. Topic about education and the education that needs to be reformed, not only in New York City, but throughout the country. It's an issue. Yes, the laws that were passed down in Washington, D.C. that made it possible for children of all colors and all races to have equal education and access to the same type of education across the board is good, but at the same time there was problems with some of these laws that were passed. The original law was passed in 1965 or 66, but it was introduced by the then President LBJ, and eventually it was reintroduced in 2001 by former President Bush, and then it eventually was reformed again, once again, by President Obama in 2015. So I do believe that it's important that we have access to the right materials, that children get the right education. But I think, again, we've made it so that money, okay, is controlling the education in our school system. And corporations are making money off the backs of our children, our teachers, and they're not receiving the proper education because the money is the priority and not our kids. And our kids need to be the priority. So we need to, again, hold accountable our elected officials in Albany. Okay, we need to hold our elected officials accountable in City Hall. And we need to make sure that when we elect individuals, that they keep their promises, that they don't make lofty promises to build a new building for our community, but then at the end of the day, they actually build other types of buildings for other developers. But again, getting back on the topic, education is important, and we do need to revise No Child Left Behind. Yes, President Obama did try to reform that policy, but it needs to be further looked at. And that starts, like I said, here in Albany, here in City Hall, and then in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Sorry, what's the question?
The question was, what is your feeling about No Child Left Behind?
Well, all of the children in this community, whatever socioeconomic condition they're in, should have the same education. And we can provide the same education. We could provide health care to all these kids. We can provide everything that we want for the children of this community, and we can. However, at the city, state, and federal level, there's a big problem. At the community-based level, there's a problem. At the school area, there is a big problem. There's a bigger problem. It's called corruption. All right? We're not dealing with the corruption. I'm happy that we have term limits. We need new fresh ideas every 4 years, every 8 years. And we need it at the state, at the city, and at the federal level. And we give term limits to the President of the United States and term limits in City Council. Then we could do it across the board for the Assembly and the Senate. We need that. We need to go back into the community boards, and we need to get more involved, because I think there is a sort of corruption there too, because the community board is selling out the community, selling out the kids. No Child Left Behind is very important. There are 500 daycare providers in this area, and these daycares provide education from like 3 years old to 5 years old. We need to continue supporting that. The Chinese do it. They educate their kids at a very young age. But we don't have the space, we don't have the time or the education. But yet we created 500 daycares. And that's the nucleus, that's the push forward, that's how you start the revolution of education. We need to provide the tools to the teachers. No child left behind is very important. No child should be getting held over twice, 3 times. If a child gets held over 1 time, something happened to the school system. What happened to the teacher? Why didn't the teacher get the proper education to the child? So we need to think about that. We need to get back involved in the community board. We need to get involved in and be aware of what legislations are being passed. Go to your New York City, state, and federal level and look at what your politicians are proposing that's becoming bills. If a legislator
20
cannot,
seconds.
if a legislator cannot create a bill, right, that passes the committee, right, and then from the committee, it goes to the House. It's passed in the House, it goes to the Senate. Then the governor or the mayor has to sign it to make it powerful. Then why hire that person for the job? If you was unsuccessful here, what makes you think you're not going to be successful down here? You know, we have to look at across the board and really examine who is best qualified for the position, who has the experience, the education, who has the compassion, the honesty, and the transparency. Transparency across the board, that will save No Child Left Behind. We can look at the legislation,
Time's up.
we can tweak it and fix it. Thank you.
Surrounded by love tonight, as you can see. In this state, we've done our part. Over $25 billion went into education. New York City has to administer that money appropriately. So if there's a school out there that has antiquated books, we've done our part in the state. That's a city issue, and I promise you that'll never happen in my district when I become a city councilman. As far as the state, came up with first time ever free tuition. Community schools, programs that haven't existed before. We funded them, and yes, I'm not an educator, and the power and the decision should be in the hands of educators. And when it comes to No Child Left Behind, every parent, that stakeholder knows what's in the best interest of their child. As an elected, I'll make sure those options are available to you, whatever they may be. Thank you.
I'm going to kind of broaden the question here a little bit because we've heard so much about No Child Left Behind, but also about Common Core. And you know, again, the rollout for Common Core in the state was bungled. It was bungled by John King, who eventually then went on to be the Secretary of Education, which should leave you with some concerns at the federal level. Listen, No Child Left Behind, like a lot of education policy that's done at the federal level, the intentions are great, but if you create higher standards but don't provide the funding at the federal level, all you're doing is creating something that should be called No School Board Left Standing, because we don't have the resources to adequately come up with a lot of those things. What we really have a problem with when I speak to educators, and I'm fortunate I have many friends who are educators, a lot of educators supporting me. I often get text messages from Andrew's daughter about everything going on at PS 71, which I'm sure will continue no matter what happens in this race. But one thing that I've been heard again and again and again is we're just teaching these kids to the test. If we're teaching them to the test, we're teaching them short-term retention of information. That doesn't prepare them for the 21st century. That doesn't prepare them how to do computer technology and how to code things and things of that nature. That's where the jobs are. That's where the training needs to go. We need to invest in vocation schools and other educational opportunities. You know, again, and there is a shortfall in terms of the funding we get at the state level. The Alliance for Quality Education said that even in this budget, the state is still owed, or the city is still owed, through a federal lawsuit, $4 billion. So more money needs to go in, but more money is not often always the solution. We need more wraparound services. We've talked a lot about PS 71, but let me share something with you about PS 72, a statistic that I found alarming when I read it in DNA Info a couple months ago. Do you know how many kids in PS 72 come from a homeless family? Does anyone want to take a guess real quick? Anybody? 10%. 10%. So listen, Johnny's not going to be able to focus on the homework if him and his mother are worried about where they're going to sleep the next night. We need to invest in wraparound services, community schools that we've talked about here, get a holistic fashion, get more beacon schools, which I know Bob Beater is going to champion of, and getting them into our district here. That's what's going to make a difference in one child's life. That's going to make a difference in all our child's lives. We need to invest in the schools now so the next generation wants to stay here. It's the most important thing we can do. I'm committed to it. And again, when the funding is not passed along, I won't, mince words on saying where the buck stops. And one last thing, and this is something that Mayor Jane and I talked on. I'll keep it very quick then. Be fair, I've been under time a lot tonight. I want to establish an advisory panel of current and retired teachers. So we can look at the different problems we have in the schools, because we have such a reservoir of great educational talent in this district. I want to put it to work for our kids. Thank you very much.
I want to agree with John that Common Core has got to go, but to say that we're training our kids to pass an exam is an understatement, because how can they pass the exam using Common Core? Common Core is reversed. It takes teachers 5 lessons to teach 1 lesson today. My brother's a school teacher at Lehman High School, and he'll tell me that he can't teach the entire book in his English class because he doesn't have enough days in the semester. So another thing is, we can't blame our teachers. I heard one of the other candidates here say, what did the teacher do? Our teachers are trying hard. My brother's working in Lehman High School, and every year Lehman High School is being told it's a failing school. But if the system is failing, don't blame the teachers, because the teachers are working hard. They work after they go home, they prepare their lessons for the next day, they grade exams, they're working hard. So if the system is broken, let's fix the system, and let's not blame the teachers that are bringing it. You know, the other thing is, part of a side effect of the No Child Left Behind is the zoning issue. You know, like, because then they said, well, you're not happy, your son or daughter is not getting a good education in one other section of New York City. Well, go ahead, bring them anywhere you want. What do you need? A letter from the administrator, a letter from the parent saying that, you know, I'm not happy with the education I'm getting in my community. So that means that then our schools are being bombarded because we have better schools. Or we have schools that the teachers are busting their rear ends to make our schools better. So is that fair to the kids who live in our district? Is that fair to the parents who pay taxes in those districts? No, absolutely not. So No Child Left Behind. The zoning has to be brought back. Another thing is inclusion classes. I don't know if you guys have heard of these things, but it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous way to teach kids. If you have a class that, when we were kids, and I'm sure everybody in this room can agree with me, there was classes like 8 SP1, 8 SP2. So you had your higher classes, and then you had your classes 8-1, 8-2, 8-3. Well, that was fine for people like us. We got along. But now today they say, well, that's not fair to the kids that are a little bit slow, a little bit behind. So let's do an inclusion class. So we're going to bring a kid that belongs in 8-10 into the class for 8 SP1. And what happens? The teachers can't cover enough classes. They can't cover enough lessons. So we're going to sit you at the table with 5 other kids. And those 5 other kids might be a little more advanced than you. We're going to ask the children to explain it to the child who can't get it fast enough, because the child might be able to teach it in a way that the other children can explain better. Does that make any sense? Our children who are advanced are being held back. And they can't go to the advanced classes because they're teaching their classmates. Now, I don't say that all the other children deserve the best education possible, but my child or your child or any child should not have to do the job of the teacher because the city wants to do things like Common Core and then ask all these children to go into the inclusion classes. It doesn't make any sense. One last thing, I want to bring up the free school for kids in college. I'm all for free school, except for the fact that if you're going to say that if a child gets a free education because their parents make under $110,000, well, in today's society, we know we need 2 working parents. And if you make over $110,000, shame on the state of New York for saying that that child does not belong and not get a free education. Every child should be treated equally. And if one child gets a free education because their parents made $99,000, the child with their parents make $150,000. Deserves a free education. I have 4 children, 2 are in college, 1 just graduated, 1's going into college. None of my kids got a free education. So it's totally unfair. You fill out these financial aid forms applications, and you can't even send your kids to school if you don't complete the FAFSA forms. So you fill them out for no reason at all because they don't get financial aid.
We have a major problem with parking. We have suggested capping I-95 from Hollywood Avenue to Tremont Avenue and at Pelham Bay from Wilkerson Avenue to Westchester Avenue. We have also asked for commercial lots. How do you feel about this, and what can you do to make it happen? Mr. Johnny?
Great question. Congestion. I just left, before I got here, I was at a meeting with the MTA and the bridge scandal that we had ongoing with the Throgs Neck and the Whitestone Bridge. Parking, vehicle traffic is taking a toll on the quality of life that we have. We don't have enough of it, and there was a time when if you were fortunate to have 1 car per household, now you have 1 car per person, and they have a weekend car. It's true. So we have been looking at alternatives. Angle parking, creating additional parking over 95 off of East Tremont. That is unused space. I promise you that ideas such as that will be ones that I'll be working on to make sure that we alleviate not only the traffic, but making sure that we have ample parking for all. Our commercial corridors, which are suffering, I don't see, we have vacancies. And we have meter maids that are so ready and willing to patrol and give tickets. You pull in for a slice of pizza, it's $115 later. It will be a long time before you go stop at that pizzeria again. We need the parking that is going to be able to meet the needs of the shoppers, make this community more thriving and allow the openness while we support our commercial mom and pop stores. So it's just not about the quality of life, but remembering that those commercial corridors make our community what is thriving and so great to live in. I promise you that we'll be looking at those ideas as well, and I look forward to hearing more about your ideas when it comes to parking. So collectively, we'll come up with a plan.
When we look at the environment, I think a couple of years ago I was watching Al talking about how we're destroying the environment. Yes, how many of us have a car? Every child in the family wants a car. They want a BMW, they want a gas guzzler, big trucks. We need to think about what type of transportation system we're going to need in the future because we're destroying the environment, period. Global warming is for real. Look at Hurricane Sandy. I've never seen a storm like that in New York City all my life. 50 years old. This thing is real. Yeah, maybe we need to change the way we park, vertical. Maybe we need to just downsize the cars. We don't need BMWs, 7-passenger trucks to go to the store, to go to the bodega, to go around the corner, to go to the mall. Maybe we need to start using transportation. When I was a kid, there weren't that many cars in the streets, and the cars were like 5 times bigger. All right? Cadillacs were like from here to the end of the wall. All right? And, we have a big problem with cars because everybody wants one. They're affordable. Let's look at some companies. There's an American company called Elio, E-L-I-O. It's a 2-passenger car. It does 80 miles to the gallon. And it's a 3-wheel car. Do we need big cars? Yes. We don't need big cars. But we need to look at and re-examine how we use transportation and the infrastructure. I think we should have also had a transportation boat system all the way to New York City. Soundview got one, and we didn't get one. We could transport people in and out the city, maybe through the waterways. But traffic, cars is an epidemic. It's causing an environment situation. If we don't think, look at the weather patterns. Look at the seasons have been hotter. We had less winter. When I was a kid, we had 4 feet of snow. Right? It was crazy in the wintertime in the city. Now there's no snow. Right? And there is a big epidemic problem. I think we need to rethink about this. And this has to come from the federal level all the way down to the state. Thank you.
Try to stick to answering the question. I mean, you can expand on it, but the person who wrote the question wants an answer, a direct answer. So thank you.
So I'm going to make this really direct so that we don't take more than 2 minutes. The problem is across the city, not just District 13. But in District 13, we do need to provide more parking spaces. If the idea that creating parking along the Bruckner Boulevard or more additional commercial parking in Throgs Neck or on East Tremont, then those are the ideas we need to propose not only to the community board, but to the local elected officials that have the decision or who make the decision, who have the power to make those decisions in City Hall. But in addition to that, we need to look at providing ferry service to City Island. We need to provide ferry service to Throgs Neck. We need to look at are other options. City Bike is an option that's not here in the Bronx. What has the mayor done to provide that option here in the Bronx, especially in the areas that we live in? Those are not only eco-friendly, but those are alternative methods of transportation for those people that don't want to have to pull out their gas guzzlers or their 7-passenger BMWs and who want to just get to the store or go get a slice of pizza or go down to the square or take a ride to City Island. So I'm for that. I'm for creating alternative opportunities of transportation to provide the necessary parking that we need for our communities. But we also have to hold accountable the developers. The developers who are, like one of the candidates up here said and suggested, we need to make sure that if they're gonna build a new house, that it provides at minimum 2 car spots per family. And if they're gonna build a house or a building, that it provides sufficient parking space behind that building. And if we don't have that space, then we shouldn't allow these developers to build these houses or these buildings where there's no parking. I live on a block where when I first moved in, there was plenty of parking. Now, fortunately, I have parking in the back of my house, but if I didn't have that parking, I would be looking for hours. And I would have to go all the way, maybe 4 or 5 blocks to look for parking. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you had a hard time looking for parking in this neighborhood this evening when you got here, because we had to go around a couple of times before we found parking. So it's a challenge. And I think that we do need to look for alternatives. We need ideas, we need fresh ideas, we need the input of the community. We want to hold the people who make the decisions accountable. So the power should go back to the community. Let's make that a priority and put it back in the people's hands.
Parking touches on a lot of issues. So I just want to make this very clear. I have a sister who lives on Roberts Avenue. I have a brother who lives on Mahan Avenue. And despite the fights we get in, I see them all the time. And looking for parking is often an ordeal in itself. What I would say is, with respect to decking, I think I found an article in Brooklyn that said to belong to this association. I support it. It's very, very expensive. That's just what it is. I mean, I'd support it, but the budgets we're going to get are not going to be able to fully deck over I-95. I don't want to leave anybody with any misconceptions. We should be as supportive as possible in getting the administration to look at it, but it's going to take a collective effort on the Bronx overall. As it relates to really auto ownership in the Bronx, people might remember this. I'm a little bit of a nerd. I guess I'll just own it and accept it right now. When we had our committee hearing on the zoning equality and affordability, a lot of people came out there and they had passion, and I'm passionate too. I've been known to get hot under the collar at times, but I went out there with the auto ownership rates from the census. You go to Pelham Bay, City Island, Throgs Neck, Country Club, over 80% of people own at least one car. That's the facts. So I appreciate that in Mayor Bloomberg's world and Mayor de Blasio's world, they don't feel they need a car. That's great, but I'm not there to represent them. I'm there to represent you. And the fact of the matter is, many of you do have cars. So at the end of the day, you have to stand up for the people you represent. I'm committed to that. A few things we need to talk about. One, I'm not going to sit here and say we can change every zoning law, because we've had candidates in the past, not insulting any of my opponents here on the stage, who have told you that zoning was going to solve every problem. It didn't. What we need to do is, one, we need to have a hard look at municipal lots. They're in almost every other community district. We found the stats that show that the other boroughs are favored. And as a matter of fact, Governor Cuomo just released a plan for the MTA. And you know what he suggests off the LIE? Parking rights. It's a beautiful thing. Westchester has parking rights. Staten Island has parking rights. This is one of those areas where the Bronx needs its fair share. That's what I would fight for. If it's good enough for Brooklyn, if it's good enough for Queens, it's good enough for the Bronx. And I feel too often, even if they come here for a week, we are still the forgotten borough. As it relates to angled parking, good idea. I'm not knocking it. I think we all support angled parking. Doing some work in the community, I can tell you though, this has been proposed in the past. It was proposed around St. Teresa Avenue. And it is about $1 million a block. So it's a lot of money. And again, you have to redo sidewalks, you have to redo utilities, the poles need to move. I'm for it. It's just like decking. We need to make a persuasive case. We may need to do a study, make sure the study doesn't sit on a shelf, which too often happens by people in bureaucratic life. But we need to focus on short-term fixes we can do now. One thing I'm very serious about really looking at, permit parking. They have it in DC, they have it in sections of Boston, that on the residential streets we have some level of permit parking. There was discussion of this, of course, due to Brooklyn, when they were going to open the new center there where the Nets play. But we seem to have let that fall off the table. I want to bring that discussion back. I want to pass a home rule bill in the city council that shows that New York City wants permit parking. Because let me tell you something. As someone who works at Jacoby, I can tell you this is a thing that unites not just people who live across Pelham Bay, but it unites people who are over in Indian Village, people in Pelham Gardens, and I'm going to say this because I'm missing my City Island meeting right now, and I'm going to ask Joanne and Anthony not to tell anybody.
20 seconds.
But often, in Pelham Bay, the people who are parking there in your spots are City Island people who can't depend on the bus. So we got to look at this 360 and come up with new transportation mediums. I'm committed to doing it. I'll get it done. Thank you.
12 years ago, I was one of the founders of the Throgs Merchant Association, and one of the biggest problems we have as business owners on East Tremont is where do our customers park, right? I mean, we have a customer coming in to do something quick, they go out, they get a double park ticket, a ticket for parking in a hydrant, a ticket for parking in a bus stop. We can't have our customers constantly getting tickets, because what are they going to do? Go to the malls where there's plenty of free parking. So we did have this issue. We went to the elected officials. The mystery is you can't seem to get a straight answer from any of the elected officials as to what highway belongs to who. Does the 95 belong to the government, the state, the city? You hear different things from every elected official. So, you know, we tried to go out to, for instance, to the congressman, and he said, well, first of all, you realize that by building a deck over the 95, you know, it's going to cost millions and millions and millions of dollars. And so what is our answer? Well, you're going to get revenue back by putting parking meters. Well, you know how long it's going to take us to get that money back? Well, the way you're giving tickets, you'll go in and you'll give tickets to people who have expired meters over there as well. But, you know, that's a solution that they just weren't willing to look at. We also tried to get angle parking. And now with the Throgs Neck bid that we're trying to implement, that's going to be one of the things that we try to do on Throgs Neck in East Tremont. But the thing is that we have to take away part of the sidewalk, because if we did it without taking away part of the large sidewalks, you wouldn't have enough space for the cars to drive on both sides. And we know after what happened with Jimmy Vaccan and Mayor de Blasio on East Tremont between Bruckner and LaSalle Avenue, how they've taken away one lane, it's caused congestion and brought traffic to the side streets. So we would have to take away, thank you, and we fought that. We won every vote and they still implemented it, even though we fought them on it. So we have to do a little bit of the sidewalks on each side where it's possible so that we can do angle parking. Another thing that I would suggest is some of the streets, for instance, you guys would know if you live in the area, Mayflower, Puritan, avenues like that, where, you know, we have this problem where people will complain, well, people come speeding down our block. Why? Because they don't want to stay on that one lane. If we make those streets one way, just the way Morris Park has it, and I applaud them for doing this, make some of those streets one way, then we can put parking and an angle parking, which would bring more cars to be able to park within those one-way streets. These are things that we need to do. We also need to consider, you know, the ability that if we have these angle parking, that our business owners will be able to do more. If you think about, like John said, if we do guaranteed parking spaces, I'm not sure if that's what you called it, but I know what you meant, where basically as a homeowner, you could pay more taxes to guarantee that spot in front of your house. I can tell you, my son just graduated Boston University last weekend. When we went there, guess what? I couldn't find the spot at all. It said resident parking only. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Where am I going to park my car? So they force you to go to parking lots. But what does that do? Right now, the elected officials are saying we can't do anything. We can't do anything. If we have resident parking only, we would find those spots. For instance, where the new TD Bank was just put on the corner of Buer and Westchester Avenue. Did we need another TD Bank? You know, we have so many of the same things coming in. Instead of the contractors building another bank, let's build a municipal parking lot. You know, the property that's on the corner of Layton and, I don't want to say Hollywood Avenue, where a lot of the kids go sliding down in the wintertime, that property, I tried to see if maybe the state could turn it into a park for the kids, because we need another park in the area. If they refuse to make it into a park, make it into a municipal parking lot. We need to use the land that we have and figure out a way to bring more usage for our community, whether it be in parking or parks. You know,
20
these are
seconds.
things that our elected officials need to work with us. Like they said, a few of our candidates here, the community board needs to take suggestions, the community needs to actually have input, and we need to invite our community to these meetings. Many of the community meetings do not get invites out to the community. That's a broken part of the system. The community needs to know what's going on in your own area. Thank you.
We've had problems with developers building homes on the lot line, which impacts negatively on the surrounding homes. What is your strategy to combat this?
I still remember that call from Patty Justiano when that happened to her house, and, well, some of it's not suitable for TV, so I won't say it here today. It's a travesty what happened there. It's a travesty what happens throughout the district, where people are building, encroaching basically right onto property lines. And Patty says it best, right? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So we have to go back, we have to look at lower density growth management. How do we expand that? As I've already said, I'm committed, it's here, there are cameras going, so hold me accountable. If elected, I'm going to hire a city planner part-time to look into the areas along the Bruckner that are very high in zoning, like R7A. They're not off the transit track. We can have a discussion on this. We can be proactive in terms of doing positive things for the neighborhood. I'm committed to doing that because at the end of the day, if somebody can't use most of the windows in their home, they're not going to be able to sell that home. That home is underwater. Their biggest investment of their lives is just now something that, it's like a junker car they can't get rid of. And it's really, really a problem. What happened to her was a tragedy. And then even more so, to find out that the developer was donating to, political people made it even more questioning. Not anyone on this stage, I'm not taking a shot at anybody, I'm just speaking in general, theoretically. What we need to do is hold people accountable. And one of the things I'm very proud of in this campaign is the nearly 550 people who have donated to my campaign, almost 400 of them people who live in the district. You look over my finance sheets, you don't need to wonder who I'm speaking for and who I'm representing. I'm representing each and every one of you. Thank you.
I believe that we should keep the environment and the community intact. These houses have been here since the beginning of the century and last century. And building 3 floors next to a one-family house is an injustice not only to the community, it's an injustice to the culture and the people that live in the surrounding areas. If I'm the city council member, I'm going to pass legislation that caps the environment based on what's there already. So if there was a one-family house and you want to rebuild a one-family house in that lot, it should remain a one-family building structure. You should not have to suffer with the buildings department and the city council or the mayor allowing people to build 3 building-story houses next to a one-family house. It's unfair to this community. It's unfair to Miles Avenue. It's unfair to City Island. It's unfair to the surrounding communities to build unnecessary buildings where there is no parking there, like we discussed before, whereby the people that are going to reside there, we don't have enough space in the education system to educate them. We need to make sure that the legislation that is passed protects the culture and the environment of the community. Period. The people who live in these houses need to be protected. Their taxes need to be protected. The culture has to be protected. If we want to rebuild buildings, let's build them the same way with the new technologies. Let's allow families to build solar panels, the updated, whatever there is to rebuild the building, but let's not give these developers the right to rebuild 4, 5, 6, 18 family buildings in a square circle where there's only one-family houses. Right on this block, there was 2 building developments down the way. I saw that went up. And right next to it, there was a one-family house. And right next to the other side was a one-family house. Now that person can't even do the siding on their house because they're blocked in with a big brick building. Let's keep the housing department, let's put pressure on them. Let's make sure we pass legislation to protect our environment and our community so that Rosneck stays beautiful, stays family-oriented, and is protected for the rest, for our children and the future to come. Thank you.
Response to the question about overdevelopment,
Lot line.
well, the lot lines, exactly. It's important that we preserve the community as it is. I was fortunate enough to, again, purchase a home in the community. And when I was looking at the properties that were available, first I said, I told my wife, I said, you have the time, the energy, and you know what we need for our family. So one of the things that we did was we looked at houses in the community that were not necessarily new. A lot of these new houses that are being developed, not only are they developed with cheap material, they're not even built correctly, and they're a liability not only to the homeowner but to those who live next to each other. And I think it's a matter of making sure and holding accountable the elected officials that have the power to allow these developers to build on these lots that are either vacant, because there was one right down the block from me on Harding and Balcom. And when you go to that lot, when I saw the lot about 7 years ago, there was a lot that was abandoned, a house that was abandoned. It used to be a bed and breakfast. And then now all of a sudden we have 5 brand new houses that have 2-family homes with finished basements. Not only are they overdeveloping, but they're also charging over $800,000 for a 2-family home, which is creating a problem for the properties around there, because not only are they raising the taxes because of these houses that are not worth almost $1 million, but they're not built properly. So they're built cheap, okay, and they're taking up space, and they're bringing more people into the community that are taking up the parking spots. So who do we need to hold accountable? And I'm going to beat it like a dead horse. The politicians, the elected officials, those that are receiving money from all these developers. Look at where the money's at. Follow the money. That's all I got to tell you. Follow the money. When you follow that money, you will, they say, you remember that movie? Show me the money. Show me the money. Show me where your money's at, and I'll tell you who you are.
20 seconds.
Okay, that's all I have to say. Follow the money.
It's a very difficult act to follow, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try to answer the question when it comes to development on lot lines. That story is a tragic story. You lived there your whole life, you've enjoyed your home, your largest investment, you've given back, and to have a building built alongside and take away your windows is nothing short of tragic. I promise you that issues like this will be looked at carefully and addressed. The borough of the Bronx has neighborhoods, and we need to keep the character of those neighborhoods and preserve them. I'm a big fan of these little neighborhoods that we have throughout the borough of the Bronx, and if you look up and down, each one is different than the other. So I'll fight to preserve them, to make sure they're not overdeveloped, and to make sure that you never can build up to a lot line. Now, I don't make these promises lightly. I know it can be done and should have been done to challenge the zoning laws. In the city council, you're going to have a person that will deliver for you time and time again. And if I can't, you'll see me going down fighting for you and what's in the best interest of you. I don't have a magic wand to make all your problems go away, but on issues like this, you'll hear and you'll see how vocal I am to protect you and your investment and our neighborhoods. Thank you.
So, where my building is, where I have my office on East Tremont Avenue, I don't know if you guys know, but I'm right next to where the Bronx Times Reporter used to have a small bungalow on East Tremont. So a contractor comes in, knocks down the bungalow, And then what they do is they're smart. There used to be a common driveway. So what they did was they thought, well, let's move our building over 6 feet so that we can have a private driveway. And they put up a fence where taking away the common driveway from the building owner where I have my store. And of course, there was 5 garages in the back of the building that were there since 1920 when the building was built, and all of a sudden, those garages are no longer in use. The contractor should have never been able to get away with that. Fortunately, my landlord was able to fight it, unfortunately costing a lot of money, and about 6 years later was finally able to get their driveway back. But these things are common stories, and in my case, I'm in a commercial building where the landlord has a little more money to fight these people legally. But if you're coming into a residential community where a contractor is knocking down a home and they're going right up against your house, like with Patty Giustiano, where there's a balcony over her roof, and she can't even clean her gutters because there's a balcony over the roof. It's ridiculous. These things should never be allowed to happen. Our elected officials should make sure, and you know what? If that happens, I'm sorry, but you should take that part of the building, reconstruct it, take it down, move it over, because there should be at least 3 feet from each side. And if there was an existing driveway, that driveway should not be taken away, because it's not fair to the family who lives next door who now has no means of bringing their car in. Another thing that I think that they should not allow is a tax abatement for a contractor who builds a brand new home. I can tell you as a tax preparer and enrolled agent in the Internal Revenue Service how many people I do their taxes, and I go, oh, you live in Country Club, oh, you live in City Island, and then you find out, well, how could you only be paying $80 a year in real estate taxes? Oh, because we have tax abatement. And that sounds like a really, really appealing thing for the buyer of the home when they go in to look and they go, oh, guess what your taxes are going to be? $80 for the next 10 years. That's it? That's amazing. But yet the contractor is being given this great opportunity to sell these homes where the homeowners are not paying any taxes. And at the end, when it comes down to it, what are they doing? They're putting the homes right up against another home. So we need to stop having these tax abatements. I'm sorry, I know everybody wants to save money, but a contractor should not get that additional benefit of selling homes with no annual property taxes. Why are they doing that? Because the property prices are so high that they have no choice, because they can't afford the house if they pay the regular property tax we all pay. But then what happens, 10 years down the line, they go from paying 0 tax to paying $6,000 in taxes, where they can't afford it. So they need to stop that as well. I think that the line item is a big issue for a lot of us, especially in Pelham Bay. Being a resident of Pelham Bay, as we said, we know it's getting overcrowded. And where they're building these buildings, they're literally going 5-6 stories high. So not only are your windows being shut off, your sunlight is being shut off. And one of the things that I love about our community, being born and raised here, is that we have this atmosphere, that we live in a small neighborhood where we can look up and see the sky. We can put a swimming pool in our backyard without having an audience of people looking down on us. We can enjoy the sun. But today, we're getting less and less sun in our community. We need to stop those contractors from building up to the property lines for our own sanity, that we can have a home that we treasure and we look forward to building the equity and the value in our community.
20 seconds.
You know, if the homes are, like John said, if the homes are being built right up against each other, our property values are going down. And unfortunately, as you guys have all seen in the recent papers, Mayor de Blasio's home in Brooklyn, he's only paying $3,100 a year in real estate taxes, while everybody in this room as a homeowner is paying more than $4,000, even if you're a senior. So how can you explain his tax assessment at $1.5 million in value being less than ours? It makes no sense. The system is broken. It needs to be addressed. Thank you.
That was so interesting. I wish we could stay here all night, but it's starting to get late, and there have been several people that have given me questions and that we didn't get to ask. So I'm going to ask Kathleen. Okay, to ask your one question to one of the candidates so that we have time to maybe take a few more.
That's very difficult.
I know it is, but we have to be fair to everybody else, try to get somebody else in too. So choose one of your topics and one of the candidates.
Okay.
Well, my topic essentially has to do with animal shelters. As we know, the mayor already... Oh, I'm sorry, can you hear now? Okay. My topic has to do with animal shelters. As we know, the mayor already established some money money for a site which has not been picked yet. Unfortunately, though, us animal advocates are sort of half-hearted celebrating that. Why? Because it is run by ACC and is also run by DOH, which I could say they deserve a rating of an A for abysmal. So, actually I have 3 questions, but my one question is, how will TNR programs, which are trap, neuter, and return, be more properly funded to help rescuers in basically what they're doing in rescuing animals and also reducing the population? Because essentially, even though there are programs that exist, they are difficult to get to, and the rescuers still have to pay out-of-pocket money to do what they do. So, should I flip a coin?
You got a 5-sided coin?
No, not today.
Well, can I suggest something?
Yes.
That same question's all but 30 seconds to answer. It doesn't have to take very long, just so everybody has an opportunity to share.
Okay, all right, we'll
Good
do
idea.
that, but
Thank you.
very, very
30
quickly,
seconds.
because we want to try, okay?
30 seconds.
Yeah, I'm
make
going to
it.
tell you that I have a dog. I got to talk fast. I have a dog. It's a beagle. I went to an organization called muffins.org. They charge you $30 to neuter your pet. I think it's a great organization. You should do it. You'll find somebody local. I also want to tell you that there's an animal shelter in Westchester Square that we've been supporting. Our merchant association was able to get them a $5,000 grant per year through one of our local merchants. These shelters are invaluable to our neighborhood. We need to continue to fund them, and we need to make sure that all the pets that are on the street have a home until they're placed in a permanent family. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and just to reiterate a little bit what's been said. If you get the chance, guys, you want to adopt an animal, go to a shelter, get a shelter animal. My family did that. We adopted a dog. His name is Murphy. He's my father's 5th and most loved child. However, what I would say to you, though, is that there is more we need to do. We all need to support some of these shelters a little bit, as I often say. No one can do everything, but everyone can do something. So if you go home tonight, give $20 to the ASPCA, try to fund it towards the shelter that we're trying to put in here. Look, I think it's great we have such a great animal rights community in this district, and if there's an appropriate site that falls into Community Boards 10 or 11 in the district that we're seeking to represent, I would support it. I think it's good for the neighborhood. I think we have a very strong animal rights community, and I think we need to do whatever we can to support what you guys are doing with trap, neuter, release. I spent a lot of time with Bernadette Ferrara. This is a topic she often discusses. And listen, I want to be an ally to you and the work you guys do. You're not getting paid for it. The least I can do is lend a helping hand. Thank you.
First of all, credit to you and so many animal lovers that we have out there for the dedication and the volunteering that you've